r/AskReddit. Teachers at Reddit, what are some positive trends you have noticed in today's youth? I remember back in grades 1-5 I always saw people thanking the janitor. My dad would always tell me how that never happened back in his day. In high school we had one janitor. And that janitor loved everyone. In turn we loved him back. We found out his wife got cancer and he had to take vacation to stay with his wife. The students pressured the board to give him more vacation. And the students raised about $5,000 for him too. Wholesome. I'm drill instructor, fire department. I work for a career department, so the 18-19 year recruits I get aren't customers providing revenue by paying to be there. They're paid to be there and can be fired. It's a lot like the military. Our academy was built around Parris Island's doctrine by a couple former Marine DIs. A decade ago this was used to take advantage of them. Badly. These days the wet behind the ears new high school grads are so incredibly, remarkably intelligent. Gone are the days where a recruit will blindly accept information. Now I have yet to have a recruit contradict a direct order. But in the presentation of information they will ask pertinent questions that absolutely keep us instructors accountable. And if I don't know the answer, oftentimes they will get on the internet and figure it out and bring it to me. Or they will bring several different possible answers to their questions and bring them to me for clarification. But they also won't take injustice. In the fire service there is a long-standing rift between the old guard and the new. One former recruit was incorrectly disciplined for something he did not do. And it was proven as such. Unfortunately for him, his company officer and battalion officer were part of that old guard. Each emphatically urged him to take the discipline, a formal write-up, plus exclusion from the pertaining activity for 12 months, to not rock the boat since you're new. Obviously he didn't. He fought it and won. But the old guard slandered his name and dismissed him as one of those disrespectful, self-centered millennials. Thankfully that mentality seems to be here to stay, as I see it more and more with every recruit class that comes through. The old ways of blatant injustice mislabeled as how we did it or respect are disappearing. One former recruit was incorrectly disciplined for something he did not do. And it was proven as such. Unfortunately for him, his company officer and battalion officer were part of that old guard. Each emphatically urged him to take the discipline, a formal write-up, plus exclusion from the pertaining activity for 12 months, to not rock the boat since you're new. Obviously he didn't. He fought it and won. But the old guard slandered his name and dismissed him as one of those disrespectful, self-centered millennials. Yeah. Because it's totally disrespectful to punish someone for something you know they didn't do. And for duck's sake the youngest millennials now are like 25. Those kids are Gen Z. God, this is awesome to read. As a health pov, students tend to be drinking a lot more water than when I was at school. Probably around 80% of kids tend to have water bottles, I've noticed now. During my time in school they wouldn't let us have water bottles or any kind of drink in class. Same here. You had 3 minutes between classes to use the restroom, get a drink, switch books, whatever. And quite a few teachers who would tell us we couldn't go get a drink because we wouldn't always be able to just drop what we were doing to get a drink later in life. Also no AC in most classrooms. Our teacher here, my 6-year-old students are really good with encouraging statements. Absolutely unprompted by us. We were working with Clay, and the shyest girl, who had never spoken once, said, "Wow Riley, you did a great job on your bunny. It looks beautiful." Or when a girl cried because hers broke, a student said, "Don't worry Coco. You can repair it. It'll be okay." Just very kind things like that. You wouldn't believe a 6-year-old would have the selflessness to say. I think if you watched some of the shows they watch, especially at that age, you'd find that they're mirroring things they've watched. Shows like Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol are full of examples like this for them to learn from. Daniel Tiger for the win. They are not only more open about their own mental health, they are vigilant about their friends as well. Twice I've had students come to me concerned about a peer, once because a girl had started hurting herself and once because a boy was showing hints of suicidal thoughts. Both students are currently doing much better. We found out my daughter was self-harming and had suicidal ideations because her friends spoke up and asked the school counselor for help for their friend. How do you react to that? As someone in your daughter's situation, I'm nervous about my parents finding out somehow. Being kinder to animals. Jerks I grew up with used to hit strays with stones and sticks. True. I see this trend even with bugs. I have a lot of kids try to keep or save ants or other bugs they find in the classroom rather than immediately decimate it. Although I will say I've also had kids eat the ants they find because they heard somewhere that ants taste kinda good. They reported back to me that the ants were spicy and that it felt as though the ant was crawling around inside their throat and then stomach. Gotta love middle school. I seriously regret reading that last part. Kids today are much more open with their feelings. I hear "I love you" so much more. Not between kids in relationships, but between friends. No matter the genders. It's an amazing and heartwarming thing to see here. My friend recently graduated while I'm still a high schooler, and we were typing one day and she ended the conversation with "I gotta go. Love ya," and I'm not the type to hug a friend, but I damn near cried at that "love ya." I wasn't sure if we could keep in contact with her in college, but I'm more confident now. 95% of the things kids used to get bullied for 10 years ago are now largely accepted. I teach 2nd grade. They are much kinder and they are much better readers than kids even 10 years ago. Kinder. Absolutely. My 2nd grader accidentally peed before he had pulled his pants all the way down, went to the bathroom too late. He was mortified to go back to class and was crying while the teacher was looking for something he could wrap around himself. A boy stood behind him to block the sight of his wet clothes. Another boy stood in front of him. And a 3rd boy told him that happened to me once in kindergarten. I was embarrassed too. A single child laughed. When I was in 2nd grade. I can guarantee that everyone would have laughed at me. For days or weeks. I'm surprised to have to scroll so far down to find this. Illiteracy was a problem well into this century. Since lots of poor students would also mean they are not reading. Now, kids are immersed into reading at about the same time they can talk because of that evil cell phone technology. My girlfriend's 7-year-old daughter was already reading before kindergarten. I don't think we were taught to put letters together until the end of kindergarten or 1st grade. I can't remember. I'd say they're better at forming their own opinions on issues and morals, which I would largely attribute to their access to the internet and thus getting to see and hear a wider variety of viewpoints. I remember when it used to be that my dad likes Bush so I like Bush kind of thing, but now I hear kids have actually individual viewpoints and intelligent conversations about world issues. Plus, I feel like they're more open and honest. It's not uncommon for kids to tell me how they're feeling or what's going on with them in their personal lives or what they think of what's going on with the class or me. Usually all of this without any prompting. It helps me adjust to what they need and feel and want, and also just helps us build that bond. When I was their age, 7th grade, I was a steel trap when it came to talking to teachers about what was going on with me. And pretty much all my peers were the same. I totally relate. I once accidentally called my teacher mom and I still shudder when I recall that. Lol. I keep a list on my phone of students who have called me mom. Partially for memories since it's usually the kids I like. Partially to just duck with them, haha, and a couple kids are like, "Oh no," but most of them think it's hilarious. I ask them jokingly, "Do you see me as a mother figure?" And a lot pretty quickly and honestly reply, "Yeah." I've even had kids, once they find out about the list, purposefully call me mom so I'll add them to my list, haha. When kids actually commit to something they are extremely resourceful. I feel like it's being raised with the internet at their fingertips. My daughter is 4 and her preschool is teaching her Spanish. At home. When she wants to know the Spanish word for something, she asks me to Google it on my phone. It's so crazy. Yep. I'm getting my degree and I couldn't imagine studying without internet and still get a decent grade. Students want to learn. This is something many people misunderstand. Especially some teachers. Students want to learn. But education is so slow to respond to society, especially technology, that we're asking 21st century students to learn in a mid to late 20th century pedagogy. My school still argues about cell phone policies. Instead of embracing phones as the amazing resource they are, our district talks about going one-to-one with laptops, when it would make more sense to integrate proper smartphone use into curricula. Honestly, we have almost an entire generation that walks into classrooms with the most important communication and learning device ever created, and we tell them to put them away. Edit. There is a famous quote about schools I like to remember. If you want to walk through a museum, walk around a high school. As a university history professor, I've noticed that even first-year students are more willing to express countering opinions and views. There are far fewer who just regurgitate my lectures and instead offer counterpoints and disagreement, which is an amazing trend for academic debate. It wasn't until graduate work that I really felt comfortable disagreeing with an assigned reading or a professor. And the level of understanding needed to synthesize your own counter-argument is much higher than simple memorization. Collaborative learning through taking class notes on things like shared Google Docs. Students add in comments where they don't understand parts of a lecture, and other students will explain. Edit. Wow, this brought amazing conversation and poetry. Thank you for the silver. Fantastic human. As a teacher, sparking discourse is fantastic. Ask questions and stay collaborative. Friends. I went to college much older than the norm and this blew my mind. We also had shared Dropboxes, flashcards, and even live Google Doc notes. I graduated undergrad in 2007. Just got my master's this spring. It was amazing the difference a decade made. Much more collaboration and support amongst students. Kids are incredibly intelligent. Because of the internet they have now, they can learn about anything whenever and quickly. They also learn more because parenting is improved. Teaching is improved, and so they have so much more research on what they're doing that they become more efficient. The resumes I see from high school students are better than what I had graduating from college. I'd also second that they are much kinder. Some of the things I overhear flabbergast me with how different things are from when I was in high school 18 years ago. We're consistently teaching more life skills in high school as well. We teach resume writing in my senior English class. Conduct mock interviews with real companies. Our state requires a financial literacy course for a diploma, etc. As someone who works with a lot of interns and hires a lot of new grads, I second this. College kids are so remarkable nowadays. It continues to amaze me. They are so intelligent, hardworking, and driven to learn that I couldn't imagine my college self from 15 years ago surviving in today's world. Makes me feel great about the future. They're more pragmatic about the choices they make, taking measures to reduce the amount of student debt they are going to accrue. They are also much more accepting of people of other cultures. Much less discrimination, it seems. There is the common depiction of the entitled college student nowadays. But at least where I have been teaching in the Midwest, most students are holding down side jobs and generally working pretty hard. Edit. To stand on my soapbox for a sec. I'm a major advocate for higher ed and strive to help students land fruitful careers. But I'm also glad to see a trend toward encouraging technical school and trades. Nobody wants to see a young person go into debt by attending a school they're not sure they belong in, a field they're not sure they enjoy. There is serious pressure for young people to map out their entire professional lives at 18 years old. I think, in my experiences, the sense of entitlement can sometimes, not always, that's for sure, be misinterpreted as they are educated and know what they want and are willing to stand up for it. They know what they, and others, are capable of, and want to make it happen. They're more aware of the general goings on in the world and have a strong sense of justice. Along with that, as others have mentioned in this thread, they are more accepting of differences. The bully victim trope is less of a thing now, where I am, at least, and kids usually love and let live. The flip side of this is that a lot of kids are getting faulty information and a lot of them carry fairly shocking, uninformed opinions because of what they heard or read on the internet. Yeah. This second paragraph is sadly very true. I will also say that it's true of many adults as well, though lol. In my experience, adults are far worse about being able to decipher truth on the internet than youth. This is probably going to get lost, but I teach emotionally disturbed kids who can't attend mainstream high school because of their behavior. These are kids that treat the majority of the people that they interact with like shit. They use slurs and swear and can just be all round horrible to each other. We have one kid who's full on autistic, but the parents refuse to have him diagnosed, so he's with us, not in an autism unit. They don't say a word to him. They listen to him rant about chickens and rabbits and even ask him questions about it. It's so bizarre to see kids frothing at the mouth and calling me a ducking cunt and then gently redirecting the autistic kid away. They're so much more accepting of disabilities than my gen was. It's great. I graduated high school in 2010. A buddy of mine is autistic but relatively docile. He was never aggressive in any way. Just highly excitable and would talk nonsense for the most part. Anyway, our class embraces this kid with open arms. You would have thought he owned the school. Man. High fives. Pats on the back. People greeting him as he walked through the hallways. I ate lunch with him every day my junior year along with a group of the more popular kids who loved him despite being the cool kids of the group. We had our own little call and response type thing whenever he saw me. He never got tired of it. I remember one time I happened to be walking to my locker during class and I saw a couple VPs kind of cornering this kid and talking gently to him. He was having a bit of an episode and was extremely distressed about something and he wouldn't cooperate with the administration. I asked if I could talk to him and they said sure. So I greeted him how I always would, hey so and so. What's up? What are we doing tonight? And he grinned and came over and slapped me on the back. The same thing we do every night. Ethan's madra. Try to take over the world. We took a little stroll and by the time we came back he was all good. I graduated and didn't see him for a few years. One time I was back home for a few nights and ran into him at a pizza place. I was curious if he would remember me. He came up and slapped me on the back and said, hey, Ethan's madra. What are we doing tonight? Man, I swear I almost cried. Edit. Thanks to several people for the silver and gold. Shout out to my parents for raising me to treat everyone with dignity and respect. This makes me so happy. I'm really glad there's people like you out there. I have noticed that my freshmen, for the most part, tend to be very open, I guess is the right word. They seem to readily share their thoughts, ideas, problems, etc. with each other. They put each other's thumb fingerprints in their phones, readily share them, and don't really have anything to hide. They are also super honest and upfront with me. I don't know if this is truly going to turn out to be a positive thing in the long run, but their expectations of privacy are very different than mine. I think it is an offshoot of social media culture. I've said that about my kids and their friends. These generations are unblackmailable. This is a wonderful thing, because so many horrors come from shame and secrecy. There's been so much evil done in the past through manipulating people using shame. From the blackmailing of gays to self-hatred and its projection. But I can't see it happening anymore. These kids won't have it. They are open about their problems. And they are incredibly supportive of each other during difficulties. They're growing into adults that just are not motivated by those fears or those secrets. It's amazing. I love the young. Radical honesty is a phrase many of my younger classmates use. They live in the light. It's really inspiring. This will be my 4th year working with kids with disabilities. The severity ranges from mild to severe. Not once in my 4 years have I ever had a kid ask, "What's wrong with him?" I've never had a high functioning individual question someone else. And I really like that. Empathy. Children today are much more empathetic. I teach 5-6-year-olds and had 3 special needs children in my class this past year, with one being quite extreme. The children quickly picked up that that child needed extra attention and would ask if they could help as well. These children give me hope, y'all. It seems to me that students today are increasingly more aware, curious, and resourceful. Everything from climate change to science, from the arts to socio-political considerations. They question things more directly and are adept at exploring and finding answers as they adroitly navigate the internet. Imagine growing up and anything that interested you just look it up. Is making for very smart kids. Google does not tire of the why of the preschooler. I do sex ed for 14-16-year-olds. They always ask how to satisfy the opposite sex and seem less selfish. Probably because TV and movies have made the joke about the unsatisfied spouse for like 30 years. Boomers. I hate my wife. Millennials. I hate my life. Gen Z. Yeet. More popular kids stronger standing up for the weaker / different. Not a teacher, but a security officer in a college. I agree with this. I've experienced a lot of kindness from kids I would say are popular / likes. I never really felt left out or ostracized by them just because I was different, socially awkward. Nerd geek culture is more accepted. That would mean less bullying, which is great. Perhaps the bullying has just shifted to the kids trying to keep up with outlandish Instagram standards. I would hope that the acceptance of nerd culture would have taught acceptance for being yourself, but it seems like the culture has only shifted. As everyone else has said, kids' empathies are through the roof. They're more connected to each other. And while that can cause problems and bullying, a lot of which we can't see, for example, Snapchat, it also means they genuinely know each other better. Something we've also focused on, which has changed from even 4-5 years ago, is their health and level of stress. While they still want to get into a good college at my school, they're starting to focus on finding the right school for them, which very rarely is an Ivy. I commend them a ton, because I still have that elitism bias. But I'm working on it. Also, kids are more outspoken about their identity. The number of trans kids at my small school seems high, but is really the appropriate size for the grade level. According to average statistics, we're offering training next year to all of our seniors to lead discussions on race, bias, inequality, etc. because they demanded that we do so. I love that they're willing to advocate for themselves and what they need. It makes my job so much rewarding when I know we're providing what they need. Kids care about the environment, which is more than can be said for a lot of their parents. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to RedditQueen for the best daily content.